Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ryan Sanders. I'm on the product marketing team here at Keyfactor, and I'm joined by Jack Palavoda. And Jack is our senior solutions architect, and he's got over 35 years of experience in systems engineering and technical support. So welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
So this isn't really your traditional webinar. Jack and I want to keep it short and to the point. So let's skip that classic webinar agenda and get right into it. So Jack, we're looking at these two teams. These, as I know our VP of product management, Mark Thompson, he calls them the diametrically opposed groups. And these are different groups with different needs. The responsibility to sign code typically falls on those dev teams, but they're not really incented on preventing risk. They're incented on pushing code to production. So I wanted to take a minute with Jack here and discuss the challenges and the priorities of each of those teams. So I'll start, Jack, with the security team there on the left. So from the InfoSec side, what we hear from security teams is first and foremost, how do I secure my code signing keys? If I'm going to get involved in the code signing process, that's my number one priority, because there's potentially keys living in places that I don't know about, and without visibility into that, it's really hard to gauge the risk. And by delegating control of those keys to developers, it may provide them with the flexibility to sign code whenever they need to, wherever they need to, but it also increases the risk of compromise, and that's my number one concern. And even if the policies are in place, they can be really difficult to enforce. They have different teams working on different projects, and efforts to sort of standardize the code signing process and the security around those keys can seem ineffective at times. And then lastly, of course, controlling the access to those keys. It can be really difficult to do that without introducing these sort of manual steps that dev teams do not find appealing. So on my side, I really want to put in some sort of structure where I can get approval processes in place for every signing operation, every signing activity, and ensure that no unauthorized user or application is signing code with my certs.
Great point, Ryan. From a development perspective, though, security the process have really become a bottleneck. And our remote development teams have had to jump through hoops in order to get their code produced. And really, they're being measured on the production of code. My job is to produce code very quickly. So that what we hear from our customers is, don't slow us down. Quit adding tools that requires us to be security people and not development people. And so we want to be judged based on our ability to produce code, and not necessarily, we obviously want to produce secure code, but don't add the processes on top of that really slow me down.
Yeah, totally agree. So we're looking at in this framework, I guess, the friction between these two teams. That's where we really want to shift gears now. Let's look at the path forward and find ways to address these challenges of both teams, really. And through that, we'll look at some best practices. So I'll pass it over to you here, Jack.
Great, thanks. So code signing best practices. What we're really done here is taking a look at what are the best practices, and we've hit on 4 categories that we'll drill into to demonstrate the 4 categories. Number 1, protecting of your keys. We need to, the first thing you need to do is find all your code certificates. We saw in some of the earlier statements that old certificates were a problem as well, things that we weren't even aware of. We need to be able to find those, be able to remove all of them from the locations that are old and not being used anymore, and really revoke any certificates, code certificates that were not being used. Once we have an idea on where all of our code certificates are located, and have kind of remediated that, we want to then take on centralized management of that to really protect the keys, move them into a into a centralized location, and really protect them. And we protect them using an HSM, hardware security module, which provides physical security to those. So when we centralize them and have physical security, we can then allow those keys to be accessed in a secure manner. So it's not just about securing the keys. Now we have to have processes around code signing that can be managed. We need to implement segmentation of duties. In our case, we have things like a signer, a manager, an administrator, a key owner, an auditor, that allow you to not give all the permissions to 1 or 2 users. You can break it up among different groups and provide secure access to keys in that manner. We want to control access to the keys based on various things like their username, their IP address, how much time they have to spend. We want to put those workflow processes around the access to the keys in order to better secure the process. We'll also want to enforce these policies to require you to keep secure over time. So that requires us to really really secure the overall process and make sure that we're securing that moving forward. So really, security is around the segmentation of duties, controlling the access, and enforcing the signing practices around certificates. The third category is the integration with our development groups. How do we keep the software development lifecycle consistent after implementing these best practices? How do we distribute access to the keys from remote geographies and leverage existing tool sets and not have to, again, add those additional tool sets that might be a burden to our development team? So really, integration is really around consistency of the SDLC process, remote team support, and keeping a consistent tool sets for our development group. And fourth, it's really about how do we enforce these things. You can set up all the security and processes, but ongoing, if you don't have the ability to monitor and enforce compliance to them, they're really not long-term going to help you. We want to use auditing to capture all access to coded signed certificates. So we want that ability to be able to have a different person who does nothing but audit that, and we can provide that as a process to verify that things are going like they should be going. Once captured, you need a process for monitoring and accessing what is occurring ongoing. We need to implement management of the certificates by automating their renewal using a CLM. If my code signing certificate expires, I'm going to have a problem. And so we need to have an automated way of addressing that. So really, compliance equals the auditing, monitoring, and management of the code signing process and certificates.
Great, thanks, Jack. And we wanted to give you a really quick overview of the challenges and risks that we're seeing both security and dev teams facing. And then, of course, give you a bit of an overview of those best practices that Jack just quickly reviewed. But really, moving forward from here, there's a lot of different resources that you can access to get started. So there's, of course, NIST. They have a white paper on the security considerations for code signing. SANS Institute, they also have a white paper. Don't be too worried about that title. It does give some best practices as well. And then we have our own white paper, of course, a Keyfactor. So you can feel free to put your phone up to the screen on the camera. It'll automatically download any of these resources onto your phone. But I definitely recommend as a next step that you, before you even look at a solution, look at the best practices that are out there. I mean, even the CAs themselves have of course their recommendations for EV and OV certificates. They both have their different requirements in terms of security. So it's definitely something that you likely have looked into, but another resource there as well. So with that, I think we'll close it up, Jack. But thank you very much. If you need to reach out, of course, you can find us on keyfactor.com. But also, if you want to skip by the marketing and go straight to us, our emails are right here. So feel free to reach out individually, and we can start that conversation with you as well. And of course, keep in mind, we do have a solution that addresses this. That's why we cover this topic and go through these best practices that we've built specifically to address this challenge. Keyfactor Code Assure. So you can find out more about that on our website as well. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you.